Hi guys, Togo here with a new video, and this video will be the ultimate Arms Warrior PvP guide video for The War Within Season 1. And I've been cooking up some build that I'm sure actually nobody is really playing, but it feels very strong. And I made a build for Slayer, but also I made a build for Colossus with a lot of changes that can be applied to those two builds if you want to play around who you're facing, because sometimes you are going to change those towns up depending on who you're facing. Now, the expectations of this video, we're going to talk about the stats, the potential embellishments you can go for, the force set, is it worth it or not, and which pieces you should take if you're going for the force set. We're going to talk about the builds, we're going to talk about enchants, gems that you could go for as well, and we are going to talk about comps that you can play in 2s, 3s, what is to be expected in Soul Shuffle, what is to be expected in Soul QRPGs. We're going to talk about the rotations for both Slayer and Colossus. It's not that complicated, but there's a few things that are a bit different from both builds. And then I'm going to talk about a few macros and tips and tricks, but that would be a long video, so be prepared. Hopefully you do watch the whole video, because it is going to be interesting, because I'm going to share a lot of information and hopefully you are going to be quite good with it. Now, stats. I am playing the full crit build. Yes, it is crazy that in 2024, The War Within, we are actually playing crit. For me, it is the most enjoyable Arms Warrior build I'm playing. I find haste and mastery, at least mastery, is for now a bit too low to be impactful, even if you're going full mastery. But being full crit, it actually just makes you a very big powerhouse, especially in Soul Shuffle and in Soul RPGs, because whenever you're going to crit and you chain those crits, it is pretty much GG's. Now, I'm going to say that sometimes it feels bad whenever you're not critting, that is for sure, but there's a lot of things that are playing in your favor. First and foremost, we are going to crit a lot because of our spec, like spec tree. We're going to have also a lot of the things that are going to help you to crit more often than what is indicated on the stat sheet. So it will be great to play around. Now, we also have a bit of mastery because we're doing a bit of a cheeky thing with builds, which is, for example, on my rings, I have crit mastery instead of crit verse. Why? Because I want to have both worlds. I want to be able to do crits, but also bigger hits. And because of mastery, you can have bigger hits afterwards, which is going to be impactful. The deep wounds is not getting affected too much by going mastery, but your ability to deal more damage is going to be very much appreciated once you have crit. Especially you have also a lot of modifiers that are tied to critical strike damage. So critting will apply the mastery, obviously, because of your more strike, for example, or your Colossus Smash or Bladestorm, but also then afterwards, if you're critting on those deep wounded affected enemies, you are going to deal a lot more damage because of your mastery and your critical strike damage that is going to be amplified by multiple things. So again, I'm very greedy though. I have around 17%, 18% versatility. Verse is not a bad stat, and it will be better for us once we are fully geared, because I'm not going to do crazy things like this on every single piece. But obviously, once we are fully geared, we're going to be around 23%, 24% versatility. You can always play around with your gems, with your like enchants whenever you can. But I really feel confident with those stats. Again, also did a neck critical strike mastery. We did also critical strike verse on a other piece I've made with a embellishment. So I wanted to test if it was being applied to 2. So if I have like the down thread 2 times, does it give me more crit? The indication is yes, it works. So I doubled it down, so I have 1500 critical strike based on two embellishments, which is going to give us in PvP 30% critical strike. That is quite massive, to be fair, because we are like a lot of like those spec talents that are going to be helping us getting a lot more crit than what is indicated right now on the stats sheet. We have Authority of the Depths enchant, which is not the best. We want the stat increase one, but it is too expensive, and I don't want to like waste my gold. I already am not very much fortunate with that because I have multiple alts, multiple mains, and spending a lot of gold for my gear, for example, whenever I'm crafting. So the better one is the primary stat increase and the damage, like the damage that you're going to get from that. We're playing also with leech, so we have 6% leech. That helps. It helps for the damage that you're going to do. Whenever you're playing Slayer, you're going to also have leech on your sudden deaths, so that is going to be multiplicative. So it's going to be quite good. That is for sure. Overall, crit first boots, for example, so those are made with the bloody tokens and the cloak as well. So we have cloak and boots bloody tokens. So try to use your bloody tokens on off pieces that you were not going to go for initially, or if it's going to be like the right stats for you. For example, crit first boots are perfect for me. We made also bracers, crit first with the down tread. Again, if you don't want to go crit, I understand. You could also take the verse one, but overall the embellishments, it doesn't have too much value. There's the weapon one, but I don't want to craft a weapon. I could craft the honor one, but then again I have to like change two pieces, literally, because those embellishments were not going to work with that. You will have the Nerubian one on the bracers, for example, to amplify your weapon. But overall, I prefer like the current setup I have. We're taking double trinket because I am human, but you are going to play with either one if you want, like the unused or the passive one, and your normal trinket if you're like, let's say, an orc. Foresight. So foresight, I took my legs and I took my head. Head has haste verse, which is, again, I'm going full crit, but I'm also not stupid. Those are like great stats for a foresight. And we also have haste mastery, which, again, I'm not stupid. Haste mastery is going to always help like any warriors anyways. I'm going to take that as well. But I decided, like, for example, to skip shoulders, for example. There is mastery crit. I would like to have verse crit, so I'm going to keep like that. So that's why I bought the shoulders, and I'm going to make the chest piece whenever I can. So I'm going to buy the chest piece and make it into a tier piece. So I have crit haste, which is very greedy, I understand, but the foresight is very interesting, and I'm going to go for the hands crit first, which is also great stats for what build I'm currently playing. The foresight is very simple: more strike and cleave. Increases damage of your next overpower by 10%, which in PvP is 5%, I believe. And when overpower has its cooldown resetted by tactician, which is often, your next more strike or cleave has its damage increased by 10%, which is 5% in PvP, and critical strike chance increased by 10%, which is 5% in PvP, stacking up to 2 times, which is 10% in total. It is going to help you crit more often, first and foremost, but also your damage is increased, which is always going to be nice, especially on your bread and butter, which is more strike, and then also your overpower. So those two, and that's why I'm saying that the foresight is pretty mandatory, because it is going to be felt. The damage is really, really nice, especially if you're playing with the build I'm showing you guys. And chance wise, I did talk about, like, it's pretty standard. And gems, I would say the embellishment, I would use the embellishment that is giving you damage for the amount of times you're snared, for example. That's going to add up because you do get kited pretty often with the current meta, and it will give you some good damage. Sometimes it can like hit for 400k and whatnot. So if you're very unlucky with snares, it can give you that extra oomph whenever you're going to connect, and that helps especially with like a lot of like the stuff that is working with both Slayer and Colossus. Now let's talk about the builds. I think most people are here for that. We are playing a gigantic crit build, and this is pretty standard, but I'm going to still talk about it. On the class tree, we have every single utility spell taken. So for example, we have intervene, obviously, we have stormbolt, we have fear, we have our self-sustained talents, which are impending victory and second wind, which is not to be underestimated at all. But also playing Spear of Bastion. And why Spear of Bastion? Now, this is like a flex talent. You could do Spear of Bastion or you could do your Thunderous Roar. That will only happen if you are playing, let's say, versus someone that doesn't care about your Spear of Bastion. For example, a priest can just fade away. For example, a DK can also run away, but normally you're not going to use it on a DK. But if, let's say, the main target is DK, he can also run away by just using Def Advance or the Charger from the Ride of the Apocalypse hero talent. He can also get away. You have, like, for example, Evokers, if they take the right talents, they can also get away. They can hover away, or they can just deep breath away, which is not very effective. But for example, with the amount of affliction warlocks currently on your solo shuffles, for example, or solo QRBGs, the only way that they can get away from it is by actually actively using portal out of it. Now they have to place the portal first and foremost, but also not have used it before you're doing it. So you could always like do a good Spear of Bastion with good value. But in general, it will also enable to do more crit damage. And since you are like a crit build, you're going to crit quite often. And with, like, let's say with Slayer, if you're doing your full burst rotation and you have like 3 stacks of like imminent demise with the 3 accelerated blade storms, and you're doing your whole rotation with Colossus Smash, Avatar, let's say you did a Sharpened Blade, like more strikes, so again, he is like not getting a lot of healing, and then you're doing a Blaze Storm, it is going to be massive unhealable damage, especially if they're solo. Like for example, the Affliction Warlock is alone and you're facing another Frost Mage on the side. He's not going to be sticking near the Affliction Warlock, but the Affliction Warlock is going to get a lot of damage based on the Culling Cyclone, which is really a lot of damage. Like people can just die by just standing in those Blade Storm, especially with Spear of Bastion. The only thing I don't like about Spear of Bastion Champion Spear is that it is very much telegraphed. People know that they need to hit defensives whenever they're like stuck inside of it. It's pretty telling. People that don't use defensives, they die, so they know they're going to use a defensive. It feels also bad that it's like a 1.5 minute CD, but it has the same CD as Avatar, so you could just like put it on a macro, on like a at player macro, so you could basically never miss your spear. Every time you're going to do a Stormbolt into Avatar, is going to also throw a Spear of Bastion, which is going to help a lot with the rotation and smoothing out the burst potential. We also play with Leech. Like I said, I have 6%, which is quite big. You could like go crazy with Leech, and this is like an indication of how you could actually reach great self-healing because of that. What else is notable on the class tree? Nothing else. I will say that it is pretty much the same on the Colossus tree, and it is also very flexible. Like this could be also Thunderous Roar, right? You take the uproar talent, so you could have like a good uptime on your Thunderous Roar. It is not doing a lot of damage. It is also nerfed in PvP again, so yeah, it is not that great. You're not doing that for the damage from a Thunderous Roar. You actually just help you do more damage on bleeds like Rend and Deep Wounds, but that is not really what I'm playing currently. Also, if I'm playing Thunderous Roar, what I would do is like remove 2 points on critical thinking and get like, for example, Rend, and I could take Skull Splitter, but I would take Bloodletting probably to like smoothen out the amount of Rends I have on multiple targets. Yeah, that this would be the build if I was playing like around your bleeds, because you don't have like Spear of Bastion, for example. But there are occasions where I just simply do not take Rend anyways, right? So I would say that Spear of Bastion is really great to bait a lot of defensives. So you could actually throw Spear of Bastion, they use a defensive, and then afterwards you do Colossus Smash Avatar and like they're defenseless. So you could bait with Spear of Bastion, like Champion Spear again, like it's the same spell. They changed the name. But it feels bad to use a 1.5 minute CD as a bait, but it works, right? So you have to see on the lobby, but also in threes, but also in twos, or even solo queue RPGs. You can play like however you want with that. Now on the arms tree, it is pretty standard, right? There's not a lot of choices. Most choices are for PvE or PvP anyways. Like for example, Cleave is not something you're going to play. It does replace Whirlwind, so there are worlds where you could do a pretty nasty Cleave build, but it is not doing too much damage. Like if you could like ever not play that, you could do that. I might try my hand with that. I'm not gonna lie, but I still think Cleave is not it. You spend too much rage for it. So there's a world, but I have to check it out. And it probably works in solo queue RPGs, but that's the only occasions where I would test that. And depending on the maps as well. We're playing with overpowered talents because overpower is crazy with this build. We have, again, dealing 50% additional damage, but also increased critical strike chance and also increased critical strike damage. We have here also critical strike damage increase. We have here critical strike chance. We have multiple talents to help you get those resets more often with depth experience, tactician, and in general, it's going to feel very good to crit because it's going to deal way more damage. Sharpened blades, 10%. It's insane. Like even executes are hitting for like crazy amounts because of this build, and I really enjoy how it plays. Now, does it need a buff somewhere? I guess it could get buffed on let's say Colossus Smash. I think the damage is quite low right now for Colossus Smash. They could maybe buff a bit more Rend, a bit more Deep Wound, so it becomes a bit more worthy to play. And it would be nice that Slam or Whirlwind comes back onto the rotation. Right now it just is like something you're unbinding on your bars, so you're not even using it. So that would be the buffs I would recommend them to do. But in general, there are just a few things that they can buff without making it broken. So they could just nerf the top tiers, and Arms Warrior would be way better. Especially if like they nerf Frost Mage, that would help a lot Arms Warrior. Now, the important stuff, right? Slayer. Slayer is the meta. Colossus is fun and can be meta depending on who you're facing. I'm going to say that Slayer is going to bring you more chances to climb faster and easier because it is very much like you don't need to think about, right? It's not like something you have to prepare for it. It's not something you have to play around with. Like for example, Demolish is something you have to play around with. Like you need to do a Stormbolt before, or else it's useless. You can also get CC'd into it, so your damage is quite low. But they get buffed next week, but this week. But it would be nice that they give more CC immunities. But let's talk about Slayer first. So Slayer gives you more mobility possibilities. So either you're using the CDR, which is Heroic Leap reduces the cooldown of Charge, and Charge reduces the cooldown of your Heroic Leap. What I like is Relentless Pursuit, which is a mini like Dispel. Like a movement, all movement impairing effects are removed. It's useful. I like it. The movement speed increase is also quite cool. Personally, I really like this talent. I think it could be like buffed to 20 seconds instead of 30 seconds, but who cares at the end? Like every 2 charges you're going to get it, kind of deal. We're thinking also Opportunist. Why? Because Overpower is actually dealing crazy amount of damage. It crits for a lot, like 1 million sometimes, which is on a builder pretty much. Like it's something you're going to use every single time. And Tactician procs like pretty much every single time on this build as well, because your executes are proccing that. And it does additional critical strike damage. So that helps also with the build, which is critical strike. Again, you could also play the more strike talent, which is giving you effectively great more strikes. Like I crit it for 1.3 million pretty often. Like sometimes even 1.5 million. It is working, but again, you have to crit first, and then your next one is getting in like a upgraded mortal strike. So you have to have the RNG first of critting, but also the next one, if it doesn't crit, then it feels a bit bad because it effectively does less damage than the one that has crit. So you don't really see the damage increase, while opportunist is something you're going to see like directly, like oof, I did a 1 million overpower out of the blue, for example. Here, Slayer's Malice, again, overpower gets increased by 30%, so you have multiple talents that are giving you more damage towards overpower. You also have that on Colossus as well. We're playing with Culling Cyclone, why not Brutal Finish? It is nerfed in PvP, but also I don't want to use Blaze Storm to deal more damage on my Maul Strike. I want to use Blaze Storm as a real CD that is actually hurting, because now it's a 1.5 minute CD. Yes, it gets reduced, but it's not that good. Like, it's not as before, like where you could have double Blaze Storm. This is actually very strong. Again, you want to play and do a Blaze Storm single target. If you're doing a Blaze Storm single target, that guy is finished. Like, if it's a clothy, it is like literally obliterated. If it is like a leather, the same. Again, most likely you're not going to single target someone, but it is still going to deal a lot of damage also in a cleave situation. Personally, I really like it. I'll play with that as well. Now, how does Slayer work? We have imminent demise, so every 3 Slayer strikes you gain sudden death, so you get a lot of sudden deaths on this build, which is giving you a lot of like execute damage, but also every Slayer strike is going to apply mark for execution, which is going to improve 15% of the damage of your execute. By the next execute will be augmented by 15%, and it is stackable 3 times. So again, every 3 Slayer strikes you get a sudden death, so obviously it is meant to be depleted every single time you're marked for the execution. Now you could have sudden death out of the blue, so it will also be depleted by 1 stack or 2 stacks, but realistically it is meant to be 3 stacks getting depleted by a sudden death. If you're going to use a sudden death, also the normal one, you're going to get a buff, which is your next Blaze Storm is going to strike 1 additional time. It can do max 3 times, and the total duration is unchanged. So for the same duration, which is 5.6 seconds, depending on haste, it is going to deal more damage. So it is effectively a big buff, especially if you're going to play with Culling Cyclone. That together is going to give you a lot of damage. Death's Drive, again, 15% of damage dealt by sudden death is going to be healed. That helps with like Leech. So you have this and then Leech on top of that, so it's going to be quite good self-healing. Arms has some good self-healings in general. And we have also Show No Mercy, so marked for execution increases the critical strike chance and critical strike damage of your next execute on the target by 15%. So you're going to crit a lot, especially if you're crit build, and you're going to crit most of your executes, and you're going to deal a lot of damage on the critical strike damage portion of that. So again, I really want to emphasize that this build is working very well because of all the talents that we have with critical strike damage increase, and this is one of them. And then we have also unrelenting also an onslaught. So whenever you're going to use an execute on a target that you've been marked for execution, you both reduce the cooldown of Blaze Storm by 5 seconds and apply 2 stacks of overwhelms to the target per stack of marked of execution consumed. You can also use Pummel and Stormbolt. So the macros that you had before with cancel Blaze Storm, you should take it away. That is important. And then you have also like a high chance on applying those Slayer Strike by using abilities and your attacks. So it is overall a great hero talent, maybe too great. I think Colossus and Mountain Thane needs buffed instead of like Slayer being nerfed, but that's like a design choice. This is the build. This is really cool. I'm going to show you the rotation afterwards. I really like it, and I'm very excited to play that as well. And I keep on winning the socials I'm playing and the solo RPGs I'm playing, and often I get to a point where I do a lot of damage. The points where I do no damage is because I'm getting kited or because I need to pad, but I cannot pad it with this build. So all damage I'm dealing is actually damage that is meaningful. So you will not see pad damage, you will not see a lot of bleed damage, you will not see a lot of thunderous roar damage. You will not see a lot of deep wounds damage. This is really purely like onslaught and damage. But you're not going to top meters normally. You can if you have a lot of uptime. You will again understand once you have played the spec and you're going to play multiple lobbies where it's more like melee lobbies, hybrid lobbies, or Costa lobbies. Now let's talk about the other builds. So we have Colossus. This is the only build I'm going to show, but you have some changes here and there. Obviously, Shouting Throw, you're going to play it if you're playing versus like mages, paladins, whatever that is needed to remove magical immunities. But Wrecking Throw is also quite nice versus like everything that has like shields. Again, it needs to be buffed because it does no damage, so 500% increase on something that has no damage means that it still deals no damage, right? But more often you're going to play with leeching strikes, so getting like 6% leech, which is quite nice. And this is the choice, like you can do this, or you can just do this. So pretty much Spear of Bastion or Champion Spear or Thunderous Roar, depending on who you are facing. On the arms tree, it is the same. We're playing the same build as Slayer. There are still the same things that you can change if you want to. You can also say, look, I don't want the 1% increased critical strike chance. I would like maybe fatality because you feel like the games are long enough to get that and they cannot remove it because of an immunity. Then it's quite good. You could also say, look, I don't need critical thinking at all. So you can go for Rend and Bloodletting to get a bit of bad damage. To be fair, you could do that. I am not really a fan of that. And those are the choices that you have on the class tree. You also can play Dreadnought if you want to AoE, pretty much. I personally prefer Strength Arms because of the build, like crit build and critical strike damage being increased. But that is something you can choose for yourself. On the Colossus tree, let's explain what is Colossus. Colossus is a hero taunt that gives you a spell, which is Demolish, which by itself doesn't do too much damage. It does damage, but it doesn't do too much damage. It is also highly likely to be stopped. But while you're channeling Demolish, you're taking 10% less damage and are immune to stuns, knockbacks, and forced movements effects. So you cannot be pushed, cannot be stunned, and you cannot be knocked up or back. So it is a really, really good talent if you're using it and you feel like you're going to get stunned. This is going to immune the stun. Now, the issue is you can get feared, you can get blinded, you can get polymorphed, you can get paralysis, you can pretty much be stopped by anyone that really can stop you. So you kind of have to use it in conjunction with a stun or a fear, something that keeps them in place, and maybe a Spear of Bastion to be sure that he's not going to trinket and then run away, right? But you can block, parry, dodge, and use certain defensive abilities while channeling Demolish. I wish you can actually move, but you cannot move. In general, it would feel better if you were like CC immune, but that would be a buff maybe for the future. Let's talk about the mechanics. So, Colossal Might increases damage dealt by your next Demolish by 10%, stacking up to 10 times because of the dominance of the Colossus. But Mortal Strike and Execute grants a stack, and if you're critting on Mortal Strike, it is granting you a second stack. It stacks quite fast if you're Bladestorming because you have Unhinged. If you're like Sweeping Strikes, it helps also as well. Whenever you're doing normal Mortal Strike because it doesn't work on Unhinged. But it gives you like 2 stacks if you're critting, so it's quite good. But also, having 10 stacks means that you also do more damage when you overpower. So sometimes you're going to say, look, I have 10 stacks, do I need to use it? Sometimes you don't, because you feel like Demolish is going to be stopped anyways, so why bother? You could basically just do overpowers or 50% more damage, and which is like safe damage, and it is always going to be applied. So Colossus on paper does a bit less damage of overpower like in total, because you could crit overpowers on Slayer and it has more crit damage, so that's quite good. But I would say consistent damage wise, normally Colossus is going to bring that onto overpower, which is quite nice. Precise Might, which is something I already talked about. And then you have also Dominance of the Colossus, which is enemies affected by Demolish take up to 10% more damage from you and also deal up to 5% less damage to you for 10 seconds. And it is based on the number of stacks of Colossus Might consumed by Demolish. So it's going to help you to deal more damage. But also if you're like, let's say, Colossus Might is not up, like Demolish is not up, but your max stacks, it is going to reduce the cooldown of demolish by 2 seconds every time you're going to apply a new stack. So if you're 10 stacks, you don't have demolish for 10 seconds. Every time you're going to do a more strike or an execute, you're going to reduce the CD by 2. So it's going to help you to get like to that go every time. You're going to get like that go every 30 seconds, so it lines up with Stormbolt, which is quite good. You have also quite a few things that are quite interesting, like for example shockwave stun duration is increased by 1 second and also give you a snare after the stun. You have veteran vitality, which is whenever you're going to be brought below 35%. You get a second wind, which is healing you for 12% of your max health over 2 seconds, and that is a 1 minute CD. It is interesting. Personally, I prefer this, but it doesn't work. It doesn't seem like it's working because the tooltip is not changing. But if the tooltip is bugged and it works, I would take this because this is like the most value you could get on like the absorb. Mountain of Muscle and Scars, which is going to get buffed Wednesday, is going to be 5% more damage. It's not that big, but it's still always something you can take, and it's up every single time. I like that size increase by as well, because it is very nice to be imposing, I would say. Now, again, because we are playing crit, Martial Expert is also quite nice. Critical strike damage of your abilities is increased by 10%. So that is quite cool. And the amount of damage blocked by your critical block is increased by 20%, which is protection warrior talent, or at least portion. But the critical strike damage increased by 10% is quite nice because again, we're critting a lot and we are playing a crit build. We have here arterial bleed. We're not playing with bleeds this build. You could again play a bleed build. I tested. It is good pad damage, but overall it does less damage like whenever it is needed, or at least meaningful damage. Again, I don't really care about pad damage. It doesn't bring you the W's you need. You could win over like a course of a big long match, but the current state of Soul Shuffle especially is that the matches are not that long. So to have full value on this is not as impressive, especially with this build that I'm currently playing, which is around crit. We have more strike and cleave damage increased by 15%, which is always going to be quite nice to have. So this is pretty much the build explained. Now there's a lot of talk. I'm going to show you on the rotation wise, and hopefully the crit gods are there to like bless this build for you guys. Overall, like I said, a few things that you can change, but you can do it for yourself, like Spear of Bastion, getting Eternus Roar, and get like those bleed builds going on. But if you want to crit like me, I would play this build. I would show you that it is actually working, but I would play this build for sure. Now, comp wise, we have 2v2, we have 3v3. 2v2 you want to play with a healer, that never changes. Personally, I like to play with a mistweaver. I also like to play with a preservation evoker with arms warrior, and I do also like to play with a resto shaman. Now, the best current healer is Disc Priest in 2s, in my opinion, and then I would say resto druid because it's historical, very good in CC. And we then also have preservation evoker, which is doing a lot of damage and a lot of pressure. Right now, I'm not playing too much 2s at all. Like I'm playing 3s, I'm playing Soul Shuffle, I'm playing Soul QRPGs. But I will try to push as high as I can on this character as well on 2s because I do like the bracket. But I have to concentrate myself on like the different brackets that are available to us. And 2s is not the best bracket for arms. Anyone knows that. Probably if you want to push, it would be easier as Fury. But I don't like Fury currently, so I'm not playing it. And also with this build, playing crit, you will have and need another pair of gear to make it work for Fury, pretty much. Now 3s, I like Turbo, I like Thunder, I like KFC with an with like Warrior Hunter, is really good. I like playing with a caster as well. So for me, Frost Mage Arms Warrior is insane. If you can find a good Frost Mage, this is like a great build, like a great comp. You could also play Arms Warrior with a Feral Druid, and that is like a lot of damage. but you're both quite squishy, although feral druids are a bit less squishy than usually. Arms Warrior is quite squishy, at least it feels like it because of the current meta. I would say Arms Warrior with an Affliction Warlock is also quite quite a lot of damage, and you can actually like help your Affliction Warlock by intervening, which is really welcome as well. But I would say like comp wise, only your like wildest dreams and fantasy is the limit, right? So you can play literally with anyone and you can make it work, because Arms Warrior is like one of the specs that are the most meta friendly specs. So it is normally good in every single comp. If you want to play mage, you can play with a warrior. If you want to play evoker, you can play with a warrior. If you're playing DK, you can play TSG. If you want to play red, you can play red wall. So you have a lot of great comps available to you, and it only depends on the ability of finding a teammate that wants to play with you, or yourself finding someone that wants to, or teammates that wants to play with you, for example. So again, you have again the possibility to play with multiple comps, multiple classes, multiple specs, and that is one of the things that are very good about Arms Warrior. That is, for example, enhancement shaman is not really the case. What else? Yeah, I didn't talk about PvP taunts. Let's talk about PvP taunts really quickly, but it's the same as previous expansion. I play Storm of Destruction if I feel like I need the snare. But most likely, more often, I'm playing with Disarm. And if you're playing versus, let's say, someone that is not focusing you, and you feel like the damage is too heavy, you could actually play Duel, so they deal less damage to other people. While they are like tunneling someone, you can Duel, and it will do 50% less damage to the target. It is very good. Warbringer is something I'll never play. Rebound is something I play sometimes if I'm playing versus an Affliction Warlock, and he is really Shadowbolt heavy. And if I know him or I faced him a previous round, I can surprise him with Rebound, for example. Battlefield Commander is quite cool, but unfortunately limited because of the amount of things that can help you. If you're not playing Thunderous Roar, you have less value. That's what I'm saying. Master Commander, it's a good PvP down, but I wish it was on the class tree, to be fair. And Demolition, I try to play that if I'm playing versus, let's say, a Warlock or a Mistweaver and I need Demolish. But the issue is the damage is still not that great, so until they buff it, it's still not really a pick for me. I still prefer Storm of Destruction. You can play the Safeguard, but again, like most likely you're going to be the target, so I'm not really concerned by Safeguard right now, at least. Warbanner is like an insta pick for me. It is very important because the current CC is there, so you want to stop it whenever you can. And if you throw a Warbanner at the right time, for example, you see someone getting sapped, you know he's going to come to Warbanner, so the cheap shot is not going to be like long duration, but also they need to break the Warbanner if they want to do a go, so you have more time to recover from that sap, for example. From that, your healer getting sapped, for example. We also play with Sharpened Blade. That is for every single PvP occasion as well. You want to be able to reduce healing taken by more, so that's going to help, but also a more strike dealing more damage is also always welcome. So those are the PvP talents. Soul Shovel, what is to be expected? Expect to be doing not the most damage, because you're going to get kited. Expect to be like frustrated, expect to have bad lobbies, but expect also to have the surprising wins because of your damage. Overall, playing crit makes you also quite random. It means that at one point you could like chain crits on execute, more strike, overpower, blade storm, and someone is going to be deleted. But also you have times where you don't crit and it is just unfair, or sometimes you're critting and it is not really the moment to crit. It would be nicer, like let's say 5 seconds earlier or 5 seconds after. But it is what it is. Those like the things that are playing with crit, and you guys know the RNG that is tied to it. But we have 30% crit. We have also multiple talents that are helping towards like your more strike or overpower or your execute. So you're critting more than 30%, but again, the chances are still existing that you're not critting at all. Soul RBGs, miserable. yeah, it is quite miserable. Like, again, I did a lot of solo shuffles, still not like a lot, but I did a lot of solo shuffles. I won most of my matchups. Solo RPGs, I did like 6 for now. I still am planning to climb to 2.4k ASAP. 4 wins, 2 losses, and like I said, for my 4 wins or my 2 losses, it doesn't seem like I had much to say. I could like win on a cap, for example, or the ability to play smart on the map with the flag, but sometimes you're losing and you're doing all the things that are right, so you don't really have a lot of things that really have impact. So just play them knowing that you are probably at the mercy of your team or the enemy team. You can help the team win, but it's way less impactful than, let's say, a rogue or a mem hunter, frost mage, boomy or DK, affliction, warlock. Like, those classes or specs are better than warrior in general. So it is what it is. In 3 is like I'm 9-10, like 9-1 for now, so I'm climbing, just need to play more, kind of deal. So let's talk about rotation. I'm going to start with Colossus because I'm like currently playing Colossus. What you want to do is pretty much play around your Colossal Might. So you want to be able to stack it very fast, and what you could do is easily just do a more strike into a Blaze Storm, for example. Your Blaze Storm is going to be augmented because of Unhinged, but obviously it's not going to be very fast. But once you have like your 10 stacks, you could easily just do a go, for example, with like your your avatar to Colossus Smash into Demolish with a big stun. So let's say I'm going to do a go, Sharpen Blade, avatar, Colossus Smite with the Spear of Bastion, and it is going to do a lot of damage for you to be able to deal like damage that is going to be unhealable towards the enemy team. And of course try to have like Colossus Might ASAP back, so you could like do it again the next time you're going to be able to do a Stormbolt, for example. Now I didn't do with a Stormbolt, but again, you have Spear of Passion. Depending on who you're facing, depending on in your team, if you have, let's say, a sub-rogue in your team, don't Stormbolt, like try to wait on a cheap shot, and that will be also quite effective. But like, for example, Colossus Smash with a Stormbolt into a Demolish is going to deal you a lot of damage. For example, here I did like a normal hit of 2.5 million on the previous go. There I did a 2 million, and I did like a critical hit on the first 2 pass, right? So again, you could be very unlucky like me. I have 30% crit and still critted only 1 part of the whole Demolish. But again, the first 2 hits are going to get buffed Wednesday, so it's going to be quite good. We have Suffocating Darkness. You see it's 5.8% of my damage, which is the melee enchant. We have More Strike doing 1.2 million normal hits, 1.2 million critical hits. Again, if it was critting the 1.2 million, it would be higher, but it is what it is. Execute critting 4 hits, which is quite good, 1.2 million. And your Overpower doing 875 million K damage, which is also very, very good. Blaze Storm doing less damage on this build, which is obvious. So I'm going to show you another time what you can do. What you can do is actually just do this, right? Stormbolt into Demolish. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but at least you get it going, right? You have it on CD, so it is what it is. At least you have used it, and maybe they would like have stunned you at the start, but let's say you're now trying to apply pressure however you can. What you can do is also burst directly with Avatar Colossus Smash, but I prefer like do it like this, and then once we have the 10 stacks, it's going to be very fast to have like the Demolish back up. And once we are ready to do another go, we're going to do an Avatar Spear of Bastion into Colossus Smash into a Stormbolt Demolish. So let's say I do a Sharpen Blade, I do a Avatar Spear of Bastion, Colossus Smash into a Stormbolt, and it does a lot of damage. Unfortunately, I didn't crit again, but I did a 2.7 million, which 2.7 million normal hit, which is very respectable. And in general, if you are able to do like such a big hit because of your whole go, it is going to die. Now the issue is with Demolish, like I said, it is very easy to stop. It is not a meta thing, but you see like 2.7 million normal hit. If it critted, it would be like GG's over. The guy is going to complain on the forums. Execute and more strike critting for a lot, and overpower obviously critting for 910k. Obviously in PvP it is going to do a bit less damage, but it is not rare to crit for 1.2 million in more strikes in solo shuffle, for example. No, that was the closest build. I'm going to play Slayer right now, and it is about overpower damage. Again, we're going to play around the Blaze Storm. What I usually do is that I actually Blaze Storm from the get-go. It does a lot of damage, but also at least that is out of the way, and you could then play around your Blaze Storm stacks, and then you can just obviously play around your avatar, closest smash, whatever you can. You could basically wait, but what I do is generally I try to go whenever I can, but now I don't have my avatar. But now I have avatar and Spear of Bastion, so I can do my go whenever I can. So what I can do is Spear of Bastion, avatar, closest smash, sharpen blade, stun, more strike. And I can do also a lot of like those overpower, which is doing a lot of damage as well. And once I feel like I can do another go without like waiting for closest smash, I can do another Blaze Storm, and this is doing a lot of damage because it is giving you unhinged, but also the 3 extra strikes on Blaze Storm that you get from Slayer is going to be massive damage overall. You see, like my DPS is way higher than Colossus, the Colossus build. Here, my crit on execute is very big, like it's 2.2 million. We have 2.4 million crit and more strike. We have normal hit 842k on overpower. If it crit, it would be way higher. You have your Slayer strikes critting for 850k. I'm going to say in PvP it's not going to be like that high. You need to be lucky as well. Whenever you're going to crit, is it going to be in the Spear of Bastion or not? And then your Blaze Storm, like I did 2 Blaze Storms, it does like single target 3.88 million. The first one did no damage, the second one did more damage. And then Reap the Storm, which is also a passive again. Like it's a lot of passive damage. Reap the Storm is 4%, Slayer Strike is 10%. That together 15% because you have 10.7%. 50% like pure passive out of your abilities or like auto attacks, which is insane, to say the least. Like I created a closest smash of 1 million, which is massive. But let's say you want to wait the perfect go, which to be fair I never really advise to do so, because you really want to do a go every single time you can. So right now what I'm doing, I pull like the imminent demise, which is great, but it's not that good. You want to use your avatar in your closest smash ASAP, so you could like do pressure. But let's say you want to pull, you want to do like the biggest go ever. So I need to have like 3 stacks, which is not really easy to do. It's easier whenever you're like in a cleave. For example, I'm going to cleave here. So if you're cleaving, you're going to get like more imminent demise or sudden death. So that's going to help as well. Now I have like 3 sudden deaths, so I'm going to go back there. Let's say I'm going to do a go, War Banner for example. I'm going to do a go, I'm going to do Avatar Spear of Bastion into Colossus Smash, into a big Sharpen Blade, more strike into like Blaze Storm, okay? So I'm going to do really quickly Avatar Spear of Bastion, and I'm going to do a more strike, execute, just for good matters, and then Blaze Storm. And that is a lot of damage. Like very much like kill potential. That guy is just like GG's, it is over. Like I did a more strike here, 1.7 million, like 1.8 million. Execute, 1.8 million. Overpower, only 815k. Again, I didn't crit on the right one. But my Blaze Storm, I only did 1 Blaze Storm, 4.2 million. And I critted for 553k. Again, versus Clothy, this is really realistic. Again, they need to not like stop you while you're doing it, but if you are like free roaming and you're doing the whole go as it is written on the letter, you're going to do insane damage, and it is going to be very rare that you're going to be stopped. In general, if you're like ready to do another go, you do Colossus Smash and you're ready to do like a lot of damage, right? And that is retard, like a retard without Avatar, without doing the Blade Storm, without doing the Spear of Bastion. But overall, like, you can do a go whenever you want. Like, for example, I have another Blade Storm here, and this itself, without Avatar, without Colossus Smash, is a lot of damage. Like, not only, but it does 2.33 million damage on a single target. So, really, realistically, I find this build very fun, but also very realistic and very real in social fun. Like, this is going to be fun, damagey, I would say a lot of adrenaline because you will see a lot of crit, and also in general it's going to feel very good. I feel very good when playing this build. I felt way better on Slayer than Colossus, that's true, because Colossus is a lot of setup and it is very much of a headache, and you actually get frustrated because people are running away from your demolish, or they're getting saved by someone or something, or they're popping a CD because it's very easy to read that there is a demolish on your screen, so they're going to pop a CD to be able to survive that. So it is not easy. And also they can just CC you, so it's quite easy to CC and to stop your go. So this is pretty much the rotation. Now let's talk about the macros. I would say Colossus have other macros than let's say a Slayer, because I have a cancel aura Blade Storm on Colossus, but in Slayer I remove it because I can actually do a Blade Storm into a Stormbolt. For example, here I can just do this, right, and then I can do a pummel. So this is possible to do, but in Colossus you need to stop your Blade Storm to be able to do a Stormbolt or to be able to do a pummel. So this is like the macro I'm using, cancel aura Blade Storm. You could also use a cancel aura Blade Storm for pummel and for a Stormbolt, and also for intimidating shout, and also for execute, because sometimes execute is more damaging than Blade Storm itself, and sometimes you need that extra execute to be able to eliminate the enemy target. I have a burst macro, like I said, on my avatar, which is important because, again, I have a @player champion spear, so if I'm doing that, you have everything, right? I also have, like, for example, for Fury, and the same for Protection Warrior, which is working as well, and use 14 for my badge, which is also helping a lot. Again, this is going to be your one-shot macro, and I played with that more often than not. But I could also do a Spear of Bastion to get CDs out, and then do an Avatar Colossus Smash go, which is always going to be happening and possible to do. You have also like a charge, like Blade Storm cancel aura macro that I still use for Slayer, because imagine that guy is leaping away or whatever, and I'm Blade Storming. I don't want to like stay here doing nothing, right? So I'm just going to charge into the warrior or mage or whatever. I have a target party 1, target party 2, intervene, Dire's sword with black emblem, but I'm not using an emblem right now, and that's it pretty much. Those are my macros. Tips and tricks: don't get frustrated too much. Try to play around your CDs. So if you feel like, look, he's kiting you around and you don't have CDs, you don't need to chase him like mindlessly, because you're not going to kill anyone without CDs. It can happen, but not often. If you see that there is still enough mortal strike effect on the enemy and your ally is still there, you don't need to follow him like to death, right? Especially if you're the target, you can just like line them behind the pillar. Once you have your CDs, you can like do leap again, and then you can do your go pretty reliably as well. So those are the tips and tricks, I would say, because it's mostly experience, right? Try to cleave whenever you can, sweeping strikes whenever you can. Try to war banner if you feel like you're going to get CC'd, or your allies is going to get CC'd. Try to not use your stuns, try to use your stuns to stun meaningful, not to just yard the enemy. I see too many people do this, right? And then I fear. I can't fear him. I fear. Like at the start of the match, that is useless. You're going to give a DR for nothing because you don't have pressure. Try to use whenever you have pressure, or to save an ally, right? But try to use it often. Don't like keep it for like 1 minute and then fear. Try to fear fast whenever you're going to do a go, but don't feel like at the start of the match. Try to like really use your fear whenever you're doing your avatar go. And your avatar go should be going into the first 15 seconds of the match, or else you're going to lose tempo for nothing, because often the match is going to end 2 minutes after your first go, if the healer is not capable to heal the second go. It's probably going to be a win for you. So this is pretty much the explanation. This is pretty much the guide for the ultimate PvP guide for Arms Warrior. You could always ask me questions. I will always answer, especially if those questions are very interesting. That helps me also a lot, because people read the comments as well. But in general, I like Arms Warrior way more than Fury, and I want to make it work. Yes, it is currently not the best spec, but it is getting buffed next patch, next mini patch, like hotfix pretty much. You get nerfed on Blaze-Storm, it is what it is. This is more of a Slayer nerf. This should actually just nerf Slayer instead of Blaze-Storm, but whatever. And they're buffing Colossus, which is always going to be nice. And I think right now it is still a good time to main Arms. Like, Arms is maybe a bit harder or a bit like less like meta than Fury, but I think Fury right now is on the moment that is going to get like nerfed the most right now. Like, Odin's Fury got nerfed, they were going to keep on nerfing it because the early Fury is not the only thing that is problematic, so they're going to hit them even harder after this nerf. So I think in 2 weeks time Fury Warrior is going to be less interesting than Arms in the future. So again, thank you for watching, have a great day, and be sure to stay safe. We will catch each other probably very soon next video. Have a great day, bye.